She can sleep.
Okay, so now streaming live on Facebook. Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Mary.
Good morning, Dee.
This is an exciting day for us because we have a really fun guest based on a previous guest Thursday that we did. This is Jeff Hollander from Hairless Dog Brewing joining us this morning. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is exciting. We happen to have one of your products right in our very house. This is the NA Coffee Stout. Some of you might remember that we did a NA beer tasting with John Wheeler and Evan James. And I went back to watch that interview today because they're both enthusiastic beer drinkers, craft beer drinkers, they would say. And they both thought this coffee stout was outstanding. And I don't really drink beer, but I use it to bake. It's great in bread. So we enjoy it at our house, even though a lot of it doesn't get drunk in its kind of purest form. But Jeff, we came across you pretty recently, 3 months ago, I suppose. Your products being sold at Bernie's, a little liquor store across the street from us. And we were really excited to see that they have, I think, 3 of your 4 beers on their shelves. And then when we talked with the owner, she said that, of course, there's this huge growth in this NA craft industry, but you have a particularly interesting piece in the way that you brew your beers. So can you talk about that for us and our audience?
Yeah, happy to. First of all, thanks for having me. A little bit about our company is we're the only craft NA brand that is actually a 0.0 product. So most NA beers have 0.5 or a little bit of alcohol. And in our opinion, that's not good enough, as alcohol-free should truly mean alcohol-free. Non-alcoholic should truly mean non-alcoholic. So we set out to make something that is bold flavored and as interesting and nuanced as the craft beer brands that we love. And at the same time had to truly be a 0.0 experience.
I really love, we were listening to the podcast interview that you did from Makers of Minnesota. And I really loved your story of how the 2 of you realized you were at a happy hour or something and you were the only 2 not holding a beer in your hands. And so you did that sort of, why aren't you drinking? Well, why aren't you drinking? And then you sort of got past that and got to it. So can you talk about why 2 craft beer enthusiasts would decide for no reason personally to do this work, to jump into this industry? Yeah,
so Paul and I both, we had been friends for a really long time, and we had both stopped drinking for our own reasons. None of them were health related or whatever. We just decided sorry, I'm fixing my hair live on.
Oh, I know, the Zoom is so hard, isn't it?
I have a hat I could throw on too. So anyway, we both decided, he for his own reasons just decided he felt better when he didn't drink, and I did the same. I had young kids at the time. And so we sort of reconvened. And of course, anytime you aren't drinking, you owe someone an explanation in our culture. And which is fascinating to me. It always has been. So like you can go to someone's house and they offer you something, they offer you milk or they'll offer you juice, anything, and you'll say, no, I don't like dairy, and no one wants to know why or what happened to you. But with alcohol, there's never really been that conversation. And what's interesting is we're more health conscious as a culture than we've ever been. So now the conversation around why does alcohol always get a pass? And again, to clarify, as I've said in previous interviews too, Hairless Dog is not anti-alcohol, but we just find it interesting that alcohol has always gotten a pass. But
we find that interesting too.
Isn't that strange? Yeah.
I've only once since I've been a recovered alcoholic have I gone into a bar and asked for a in England they go in for the blue Becks, which sure. I don't know if it's completely non-alcoholic. I think it's 0.05. It actually says on the side of the bottle. But the bartender in that bar said to me, what do you want to drink that for? Why don't they have a real beer? I thought, just give me the damn beer, man.
Right. I'm trying to buy something from you, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the only place. We were in Ireland for 2 weeks, and Ireland have embraced non-alcoholic beers in a massive way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same is true in Germany. I was at I want to say it was the Hofbrauhaus a number of years back, and I ordered a non-alcoholic beer, and they brew their own right there. And, you know, there were no questions about it. But it's different here in the States. We just are not caught up quite to where Europe is yet. And in the UK, we just are just beginning this trajectory and this understanding around non-alcoholic beer. And again, for so long, our options were very limited and unappealing. And now that is changing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are a Minneapolis, St. Paul based brewery. Do you have an actual physical location?
We don't. As a matter of fact, we had plans for a location that were furloughed with COVID, and we decided to wait until everyone had their immunizations, and just wasn't a safe idea. But it's still back on the table for probably this summer, a place where people can convene. Maybe this fall. I shouldn't promise.
Right, we shouldn't anticipate.
But we will come visit because my mother-in-law and her partner live in the
Yeah,
Twin Cities.
we'll be there all the time once you finally get things up and running. That's exciting. And I know it won't just be the two of us, because this is such a fascinating time. I also was interested to hear you talk about who your sort of anticipated audience would be and who your growing audience is. So talk about that, because I think that the two generations that you are seeing as your audience often get a bum rap for not being as conscious as they should be. And I think this belies that a little bit.
I think so too. Well, our biggest market right now I would say we anticipated probably the 40 plus. Definitely, it tends to be male, most in our demographic, and then they tend to be people that identify as wanting to reduce alcohol intake for health reasons. But one area where we didn't anticipate was the younger generation, millennials and so forth, which I have no issue with millennials at all. They taught us how to convert PDFs back into Word files. Who knew that could be done?
You're right. We did accept that was just like in stone, done.
Right?
That is
PDF. It's done. Right? They, avocado on toast. It's a brilliant combination.
You are right.
Millennials have been a big part of our growth, and tend to be pretty, ahead of the curve in terms of what they are choosing to put into their body. And so we see a lot of young people now, avoiding alcohol or reducing their intake or using this as a supplement to their routines. They might go out with their friends. We hear from people once in a while. Obviously, lake culture is big here in Minnesota during the summer. We hear from people that will go out on the boat for the day, but they'll buy a 6-pack of Hairless Dog, and they sort of include this in their regimen, so they're not too tipsy by the end of the day. So things like that are interesting, and we didn't necessarily anticipate.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really great. So, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say what the millennials need to do now is convince us that we should just get rid of every fax machine on the planet.
Oh, I
then
I
send me a fax. And no, it's the 21st century. I cannot send you a fax.
Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, just go ahead and fax that to us. I'm like, I don't even know where I'd find a fax machine. I have one, I think, downstairs with my VCR, and it's in the box. I'll dig it up and see if I can find a landline somewhere.
Absolutely. Where's the name from?
Okay, so the name, Paul and I both have musical backgrounds, and naming we have both been through the routine of like naming bands, and naming a band after a while, everything that you say, it just doesn't sound good. So like after a while, nothing works. And but this was basically the same way. So we had been trying to name this thing for 2 years in the early days, and then finally we were out. We had I want to say we had a few people on the line. We had like just sort of a jam session with a number of people on speakerphone, and somehow that got added into the ethos, and it just stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love the design. So
yeah, I think it's really clever.
In my day job, I run an arts nonprofit. So I really appreciate that it feels very much like an intentional design. It's very, let me see if I can make this clear for people. It's clean, it's inviting, it's compelling. It makes you wonder what in the heck, I mean, I know what a hairless dog is, but why is it attached to an NA brand? It's just, I think it really, really works well. And you have something on your can that, as the spouse of a person in recovery, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate. And we talked about this when we did the tasting.
Oh, yeah.
Party like there's a tomorrow.
I think that's brilliant.
To me, that is so compelling because when you are a spouse who can drink and you're with someone who has elected not to drink and for whom it would be dangerous to consider going back to drinking, you're acutely aware of how weird it is to be in a social setting and to be drinking a sparkling water when everyone else has alcohol. And so I love that this can looks like a regular can of beer. And I love that there's that recognition that just because you're choosing not to drink doesn't mean you don't get to be part of the culture that is fun and festive around happy hour and lake time and all of those things. So I love that you have put this playful idea on top of something that's
a good idea.
quite serious.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, in the very beginning, Paul said somewhere that it stuck. He said, you know, I really want our brand to be more about having more people come to the party rather than less. And somewhere in our culture, if you're not planning on drinking, you're just not welcome to the party. And we felt like that's really strange. I have had the fun, the morbid fun of carrying other NA brands with like stigmas attached to them in the early days before anything else existed to parties, and people instantly judge you. So we knew that this brand had to be equally about all parts like fun. It had to be no apologies. And for us, Party Like There's a Tomorrow really was about the concept of getting more people to come out to the party rather than, you know what, stay at home. If you're going to drink non-alcoholic beer, don't show up.
If you're going to be a wet blanket, don't come and wreck our party.
Well, we don't need you to lecture us. And it's kind of like, well, no one's saying anything. And it's just, but people do say that there's a statement about, bringing Hairless Dog to a party, which we think is really interesting too. We're just glad to have a part of that conversation.
Well, one of the things that engage, I mean, you don't have to go into the details if you don't want to, but your IPA tastes exactly like an IPA. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Glad you like it.
It is. What was the other one?
The Citra Lager.
Citra Lager one. That is also really, really nice.
Yeah, we're glad you like
it. You're absolutely, and it's a great change from, I'll have some tap water. Have you got any ice?
Or a soft drink or something.
Diet. I can't. There's just so much diet soda in the world that you just
agreed.
You can't. You get to your limit quite quickly.
Agreed. Yeah, we have a talented team. Paul oversees the recipes and has been handling that since day one. He oversees a team that's great, that has led us to some new discoveries that we're going to be launching in 2021, some new styles that, again, take the idea of sort of a playful, unapologetic NA brand further. So we have a lot of cool stuff planned. So
clearly this has become your passion project, which I find just, I love when people accidentally fall into something that, you found this gap for whatever reason and you figured out how to fill it, despite the fact that, am I correct that neither one of you really has much background in anything that you ventured into above and beyond just this kindred spirit of both not being drinkers at this one party?
Yeah, so I have a long line of sales and marketing in my background. Paul, a lot of marketing, copywriting, and home brewing and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
He has a culinary background and a deep understanding of how beer is and isn't made. So when we used to be neighbors, so when word would get out that Paul made his black ale in his garage, everyone would come over with their growlers because he was just known for this dynamite black ale, which was actually our first run. Sort of our flagship was in fact the black ale, which when we were still in bottles back in the day. but to your original question, yes, the beverage industry is one of those industries that it's very competitive, and we both came from fields that were not like, I've always found in like, if as long as I'm interested in what I'm doing and I can find I'm still messing with my hair. I can't figure out where. Okay, now I got it.
I feel so much better about myself.
Oh yes, Dana hasn't talked about her hair all day, so it's pretty good.
Now I can concentrate. I got that one stray hair out of the way.
Totally
Both of us came from industries that were very, very different from where we are now. And the beverage industry is in fact very competitive, but we knew that we had a good product. We knew that we felt good about it, that passion was driving this isn't sort of a pity. There's a lot of big breweries will make an NA now just as sort of an afterthought or a means to capture revenue. They're like, well, don't leave that money on the table. Make sure you go after that as well. Yeah. To us, it was like, no, we're making only non-alcoholic beer. It's truly a 0.0, as we believe not all NAs are created the same. And we absolutely want it to make the best craft beer we can make using our own process. So to us, this was very much passion, to your point, was very much at leading the way in this project.
Hmm. It's so great. So just because I'm curious, what do you feel like has been your most exciting win in all of this?
Well, we have some great retail partners that we're excited are taking us on board. And I think that we'll have more news around that soon. But I think one of my, crowning achievements with this company was a yes from a big retailer. And I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it yet. I'm not sure exactly how these things work, but they'll be going live Q2 of next year.
Okay.
So that was a great moment. And I will say too, that I think the best moments, the moments that keep us going as a company, and we always make sure to share at all of our company meetings. And we have 2 standing meetings with the entire group just to kind of go through all the details of what we're working on for the week, and then air any grievances or things that need to be fixed later on. But we always make sure to share the feedback that we get from customers. And we get really touching feedback from customers all around the country that say, I haven't had a drink in 25 years. I felt one gentleman said that he had felt normal at his daughter's wedding, which we felt was incredible to hear, right?
Yeah.
And we hear from expecting moms all the time. We're like, thank you for doing this, giving me something that I can have, because a lot of doctors are saying, you're probably fine with NA options. However, there's a small amount, and again, we don't make the rules on and we don't decide what's best for expecting mothers by any stretch, but there are in fact some doctors that say stick with a 0.0 product. Yep. And so they're not being the only one out there. We get a lot of thank yous too from expecting moms. So I would say those are the wins that really keep us going and make us realize that the path that we've chosen is in fact the right one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
So I have a logistical question for you that you may or may not be able to answer, but in North Dakota, you can't sell any alcohol in grocery stores like Minnesota. Mm-hmm. But why? You're not in grocery stores, correct?
Well, it depends. We are okay to be in grocery sets, but it just depends. We have a grocery presence a little stronger here in Minnesota than we do in North Dakota so far.
Okay. So like the other day I was in the soda and chip aisle and I noticed that there was an O'Doul's 6-pack. And I thought, well, why? First of all, who in their right mind is drinking that terrible, terrible stuff? But second of all, why can that be sold, but other non-alcoholic beers aren't? Because certainly you are the first 0.0, but you're not the first NA beer. But we don't see Heineken 0.0 or some of the other things in grocery stores. Is that just based on relationship building with individual stores, or is there some sort of mandate around that?
Well, great question. So each state is going to be a little bit differently as far as where they allow non-alcoholic beer. And I'll say that that tends to get really parceled and nuanced in terms of what's allowed and what's not. We find that our product, being an FDA regulated product, not to get too in the weeds, is okay for grocery stores. laws have to do around previously fermented and de-alcoholized products, but they don't pertain to us. But as far as why some brands you're going to see on the shelves, long-standing brands, and not Hairless Dog, is again, those relationships go way back. That particular brand that you mentioned goes back to the Prohibition, to my understanding. And
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. And I'm sorry, O'Douls, I should not have slagged you off. You've probably served an important purpose. So just that's my qualifier for that.
You know, I think too that the non-alcoholic beer, since the early days of the Prohibition, when they cranked it down to 0.5, because the government said, you know what, that's what we'll allow moving forward, because they weren't able to get all the alcohol out. It actually created its own market for a while. There were people, in fact, that liked the 0.5s. Then when Prohibition ended, they continued to make them, and they just hadn't changed a whole lot. So no one had really asked the question, how do we make this something that is interesting and nuanced and bold, and also leaves behind that stigma of what a non-alcoholic beer should be, who it's for, and what it's for. You know, for us, it's about the recreation and the fun, and not missing out on life's beautiful moments.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
It is.
Do you have anything else you want to ask?
No. Well, the nerd in me really wants to find out how you actually make a non-alcoholic beer, but I won't. I presume that's proprietary and you don't want to tell us.
Well, there are steps that are in fact proprietary, but I can tell you by and large, it emulates a lot of the traditional brewing process, with a couple of the steps altered. But yeah, it is a, I always just tell people it's a big magic button. You know, it's a big red button.
Well, it definitely was.
You press the button and then all the alcohol disappears.
Yeah, well, I tell you, that IPA just tasted fantastically. So whatever you did to maintain all the flavors from all the plant extracts that you brewed up, it works.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I really appreciate your saying that. And again, we're out to make the best non-alcoholic beer we can. More surprises are around the corner, and we just encourage people to visit our website at drinkhairlessdog.com, and we'll always have some new surprises on there for you.
So I have one more question for you, and this would be Nikki Ness, who runs Bernie's, that we get our local liquor store. When she said, "Have you tried Hairless Dog?" the first thing that went through my head was, that's a brilliant name because of the phrase "hair of the dog." Is there any connection there?
Very much so.
I thought there would be.
The phrase, we went back and we looked as to the, you know, obviously the hair of the dog is alcohol that you drink the next morning after you're feeling hungover. And we looked into the origin of the phrase, and it actually comes from the Dark Ages, where they believed if you were bit by a dog, in order to keep from getting rabies, you would capture a lock of that dog's hair, boil it in water, and then drink the concoction, and that'd prevent you from getting rabies. Turns out that doesn't work.
Yeah, as most things in the Dark Ages didn't, actually, funnily enough.
Yeah, right. Dark
Ages millennials.
Exactly. We don't have another thing we learned from millennials. Exactly. Well, we love millennials. Actually, they are outstanding at what they do, and we love to welcome.
I agree.
Our team. I will say that the name very much was a twist on the Dark Ages term. Absolutely.
That's great.
Well, that's because I just thought that's a brilliant name, because you're never going to get hair with a dog if you have a hairless dog beer. That's the first thing that came into my head.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very clever. Well, Jeff, this has been so interesting. We really look forward to seeing what's next. And I'll just say, if you go to their website, they have a pretty rockin' Spotify playlist that I listened to a little bit of today. It definitely reminded me that you are in the much, much hipper camp than, say, Dr. Mary and I are. So,
I don't actually have Spotify on my phone, but I'm going to put it on.
You load it up right next to you get your fax machine out.
Right. Yep.
You know,
I'm a Pandora guy.
No, that was fun. It was fun to listen to some of your other interviews, to read some of your posts. I so appreciate that you are, as I said, bringing a fun layer to some really serious issues. So, Dry January, for instance, which has lots of pros and some interesting cons attached to it. But I like the way that you're approaching it. And I saw a great post on Indigenous Peoples Day and all sorts of things. So I think if we're going to be a culture that spends more and more time investing in local and investing in conscious driven, human-centered design and creation and products, then this feels to me very much like the kind of products that people should be investing in, should be putting in their refrigerators, should be putting in their bodies, and should be encouraging to just be part of the larger social conversation. So thanks so much for all of that.
I mean, and you're filling a big gap in this country. I mean, I read I think it was Munich, the Technical University of Munich did a study, and they showed that non-alcoholic beer may actually have benefits as a health drink.
Oh, we look at that.
For athletes.
Olympic athletes drink non-alcoholic beer because of the electrolytes and some other things. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we've read that too, and I appreciate you saying that too. I feel like it's about time that as we are making the transition, and you stated it beautifully, towards inclusivity and awareness and mindfulness, that we ask the question, and as we try to obtain health in all ways, mentally and physically, that this just makes sense, and we're glad that you see it that way as well. And I want to thank you so much for your time today, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
We've loved it too, and we'll come and visit your location when you're open.
Looking forward to it, and good luck with that.
Absolutely. Best of luck in this new crazy year, Jeff.
Same to you.
Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.